So, and it's my great pleasure and honor to invite our colleague from Poland, Dr. Aleksandra Bujacz, who will present the presentation on interesting goals and eudaimonic motivation, čili o vnitřních cílech eudaimonickému přístupu k motivaci.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Aleksandra Bujacz. I'm a PhD student in Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań in Poland. But currently I'm a visiting scholar at the University of Tromsø in Norway under the supervision of Professor Joar Witterse, who is also a co-author of this presentation. And this landscape that you can see here is actually the view from my window on the high Arctic, where I'm staying right now in the polar circle. And in this cold and beautiful environment, we are conducting research around eudaimonic and hedonic motivations, cross-cultural research between Poland and Norway, which is an ongoing study. But today I would like to present you the research from the Polish sample that were done on intrinsic goals and eudaimonic motivation. We had some introduction to intrinsic and extrinsic goals yesterday on a Happy Movie, when Tim Kasser, the author of the division, was introducing it, and the first mention, the division was mentioned in the article by Tim Kasser and Richard Ryan in 1996, when they defined the intrinsic goals as ones that are inherently rewarding to pursue, presumably because they directly satisfy innate psychological needs. By innate psychological needs, the self-determination theory by Richard Ryan and Edward Deci from the University of Rochester, they understand three needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So basically, the intrinsic goals are referring to those three innate needs, innate psychological needs. So usually we're stating personal growth, community involvement, emotional intimacy, and relationship are think as intrinsic goals, in comparison to extrinsic ones, which are usually defined as the rewarding from outside the person. So usually we will say that it is wealth, fame, and image aspiration. In this presentation, we will focus on intrinsic ones, due to the fact that intrinsic goals are, when there are central life aspirations, are proven repeatedly that they can bring to higher well-being and better functioning in general. And so we have a higher scores on vitality and self-actualization, for example, from the people who hold the intrinsic goals as the most central in their lives. In the opposite situation, when the extrinsic goals become very strong and out of balance, and this is the key thing, with intrinsic ones, then negative well-being consequences are likely to appear, like more level of depression and the more level of anxiety. Of course, this was the outcome, which was pretty controversial and still is a pretty controversial outcome. And the first debate about this started by Carver and Braid. It is called the American Dream controversy, especially in terms of extrinsic goals and the negative impact of extrinsic goals. So arguing that if you are aiming for wealth, for example, especially this is the money issue, if you are aiming for the money, then we will be less happy. So, of course, for capitalist society, it does not really sound good for us. So that's why what they tried to measure how it's like this, they suggested that it could be this relationship, it could be mediated by the motivational orientations, such as having autonomous rather than controlled reasons for one's aspirations. And this was the Carver and Braid argument, that when we are reaching extrinsic goals, so when we are aiming for money or for fame, then we usually feel more controlled and more insecure while pursuing these intrinsic goals. And then they say that it is not the reason why, the reason is why we are reaching this goal and not what we are actually reaching. So if you would like to aim for the money, but we are doing it to help someone else, then it will not have the negative outcome. But if you are reaching for the money just in order to get a new car, it probably will end up with some level of depression after a couple of years, because it also has to do with time. And our hypothesis when we look at this, because we focused on the division between eudaimonic and hedonic motivation and eudaimonic feelings, our focus was to ask the question whether the intrinsic goals are connected with a different kind of happiness, with more eudaimonic kind of happiness, not really a different level of happiness. So that we set up the study when we tried to check this association. And we use the measures of eudaimonic and hedonic motivation, of eudaimonic and hedonic feelings, and you will see the difference in this. A couple of words I will say about what methods we were using. We were using the day reconstruction methods. First of all, what is it all about? We would like to check the motivation and feelings in everyday life activities. So we don't want people just to average their feelings in life, but we are asking them what you were doing yesterday, and then asking them how are you feeling while doing this, or why were you doing this. So this DRM approach was introduced by Daniel Kahneman in 2004, and basically it focused on the systematic reconstruction of situations from the preceding day, when afterwards they report about motives and feelings connected to each event or activity. So as I said, basically we ask what we were doing yesterday, then participants are stating different events, and then we're asking how you were feeling during each event of this situation. And this really helps us to see the actual level of happiness, not only the assessed general level of happiness in this. So what kind of measures we were using? Basically 3 questionnaires, all were translated into Polish. Of course, they're either American or Norwegian in the original. Aspiration Index, a short version because it's quite a long scale, created by Kasser and Ryan. And Aspiration Index was used only once at the beginning of the study. We were asking what kind of aspirations are you holding, and then we are giving participants the DRM questionnaire. And for the DRM questionnaire, they were given a scale of hedonic and eudaimonic motives for activities, and basic emotional state test, created by Joar Vitesse, and the HEMA scale it is quite a new scale, which is invented in the kind of the newest understanding of hedonia and eudaimonia, which are considered to be just different kinds of motivation, not something better, not something bigger, just parallel things. And this fits well to our study. Just a bit more about aspirations. There was 35 items in the first version of a questionnaire, reflecting 3 basic intrinsic aspirations: personal growth, community involvement, and relationship aspiration. And for the first study, each participant was rating these aspirations on the 2 dimensions: personal importance and degree of aspiration attainment. So basically, they were asked 2 questions. The first was how important this aspiration is to you, and the second one, how much have you done already to reach this goal, where you are right now in your life. And then we were for some analysis, we are including the ratio reflecting the difference between A and B as an indicator of aspiration fulfillment. That was the first study thing. And for the motives and feelings, as I said, the hedonic and eudaimonic motives for activity scale reflecting eudaimonic motivation, which were items like, are you seeking for being the best? Are you seeking for reaching your own, like the real self, or developing some skill of yourself? That's why are you doing this? And for the hedonic motivation, for the question, why are you doing this? They can answer, because I would like to have fun, because I would like to have more pleasure, satisfaction. And this was the hedonic motivation. And for the basic emotional state test, we introduced 2 kinds of emotions. This is the division introduced by Joar Vitesse, division between hedonic feelings and eudaimonic feelings with the functional well-being theory. Hedonic feelings, pleasure, happiness, and contentment, and eudaimonic feelings, engagement, interest, and enthusiasm. I encourage you to refer to Joar's work about this, because it's pretty interesting how we can see the division between 2 of those. And also, as a control scale, we included the negative feelings, anger, fear, and sadness. So as I said, HEMA and BEST were reported repeatedly during the DRM activities and then aggregated into one mean score. Thanks to this, we have the more stable result of each participant and their DRM events. The participants usually reported from 6 to 9 DRM events from the previous day. And the first study that was run in November 2011, it was then 109 participants, it's important that we focus on the middle-aged people. So they were not students; they were older than 30 and still younger than 60. And the mean age we have like 46 years. It was important in terms of if we study aspiration, then we would like to have someone who is more stable about what you would like to do in life and already did something and still have some time to do something more. So the younger people will be maybe just aiming for something but have not really done anything. But the older ones will still assess the past only. So that's why we stay in the middle age. And they reported altogether 930 DRM activities. In the first study, we were doing interviews, asking for aspiration first, and then giving participants the DRM questionnaire to fill out at home by themselves. So what's the result? I will start with relationship aspiration, which is just a bit controversial maybe at the beginning. First of all, when you take a look at the ratio of fulfillment and not fulfillment, you can see that not fulfillment and not fulfilling the relationship aspiration undermines well-being a lot on both scales, on hedonic and eudaimonic level or dimension. So this was pretty to be expected, but this is the result that was pretty surprising for us as well, that if we have a person who value relationship low, it's not really important for him or for her, then it will be higher eudaimonic motivation and it will be higher eudaimonic feelings. And this could be quite, actually, we can find two reasons for that. First of all, it's a reason that we know from the other studies that during work, people are more eudaimonic. And when, especially knowing Polish culture, when you're valuing relationship a lot, then probably you focus more on the family and then you work less. So you have less occasion to feel the eudaimonic feelings. This might be one reason. But the second reason is just simple methodological reason, because this is the indicator, like a raw indicator, so to say. But if we take the relative importance, so in comparison to other intrinsic goals, then relationship aspiration will make no difference on the happiness. So the relative index are quite better. So how much more you value the relationship in comparison to personal growth and in comparison to community. And this will be the indicator that we will use for other studies and for other aspirations. Personal growth aspiration, according to our expectation, brings more eudaimonic feelings in general. And the same with the community aspiration, again, brings more eudaimonic feelings. As I mentioned before, eudaimonic feelings means engagement, interest in general. Also flow, sometimes it's included in it. So we are really interested in the fact that community and personal growth aspiration works pretty much the same in this study. So we set up another study which is pretty new, and I've done it in Poland in April 2012, so just right now, and the results are pretty fresh about it. So we have 102 again of middle age, just a bit younger group, 37-year-old mean age, reported altogether 612 DRM activities. This study was done online, and what we have done to improve the scale a bit, we added the generativity items to the eudaimonic scale of HEMA. Why we did this? Because if you take a look at the items from the eudaimonic motives that were originally used in HEMA, there is only the seeking for my own development items. And then we hypothesized that because eudaimonia is not only seeking for my own development, it's also helping others to grow. So we added the generativity items, which means I would like to feel needed. There will be the similar items that I'm seeking to feel needed. I'm seeking to teach someone something. I'm seeking to help someone to do something. And then these generativity items, together with other eudaimonic items, were now a generative eudaimonic motivation scale. And this changed quite a bit in the difference between personal growth and the community aspiration. So personal growth aspiration, again, brings more eudaimonic feelings, and I would encourage you to notice that there are no difference between hedonic motives, and this will be quite different for the extrinsic ones, as we will see in a moment. And for the community aspiration, the differences are coming out to be really huge. When we take a look at the eudaimonic generative motivation, is quite low when the community involvement is low, in general, low importance for the participants, and really high when there is a high importance of it. Again, for the hedonic motivation and for the hedonic feelings, we do not see any differences. So it seems that intrinsic goals, specific intrinsic goals, are really bringing some different kinds of happiness for each group of participants. We also done the relative importance. We just divide groups into into people who value community aspiration over the personal growth aspiration, value it higher, and the personal growth group that values personal growth higher than community aspiration. And then we again see that generally eudaimonic generative motivation will be far higher for the community aspiration. In terms of comparison between all groups, holding the community involvement aspiration brings us the higher level of happiness, especially eudaimonic happiness, as we can see from this study. I will also just mention what will be the difference. This is the correlations, the simple correlations between all the scales that we are using and all the aspirations that we are using. As you can see, hedonic feelings are pretty much connected with the fame aspiration, and eudaimonic feelings will be connected with community aspiration. Again, the eudaimonic generative motivation brings more community or aspiration or involvement. It's hard to say what is first, of course, as always in psychology. It's just connected to each other. And this is also important. The negative feelings are connected with wealth, and hedonic motivation is connected with wealth. So this, of course, needs more research about it, because we are focusing on interesting goals rather than extrinsic ones. But it brings some interesting results that maybe not the reason of the lower psychological health when you're holding extrinsic goals are coming from not the fact that why you're doing this exactly, or what you're reaching, but coming from the fact that you're feeling just different kinds of happiness, more hedonic ones. And as we know, the theory of hedonic treadmill is just can bring less happiness in the long run, and this might be the reason for the American dream controversy, as we can see right now. So I would just conclude that results showed that the importance of personal growth aspiration is associated with eudaimonic indicators, especially eudaimonic feelings. And holding community goals is also important for eudaimonic feelings and very important for eudaimonic and generative motivation. So this would bring us to the conclusion that it is important to introduce the generative motives to the eudaimonic idea of happiness as well, not only focusing on the self-development. And there are no difference in terms of hedonic ones, but we will see the difference if we will analyze the extrinsic goals. So I suggest, and we suggest, to separate analysis of the intrinsic goals of different intrinsic goals as well as different extrinsic goals. Just for short notice, in terms of extrinsic goals, we do not see that much difference in how they work. They will bring more hedonic feelings, but they are not different, like fame and image and wealth are not different from each other as much as intrinsic goals are. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention.